This is Samalkha, a small industrial township of district Panipat in Haryana, located on NH1 at a distance of only 80 kilometers from Delhi, India's capital. Famous for its numerous foundries dating back to India's independence, many have vanished in their struggle, and only 30 micro and small-sized cast-iron foundry-based firms remain here today. This cluster employs about 1,500 workers in its firms who were using the conventional methods and technology of production, mainly the single-blast cupolas. From these cupolas descends the smouldering, sparkling, molten metal that plays a major role in triggering the industrial and economic growth of India. These sand beds produce up to 35% of low-cost agricultural tools and equipments that are used and supplied to the majority of northern India. But these units are grossly below even the national benchmark standards.
Cupola is actually a shaft-like furnace where we put the material from the top and the air is passed from the bottom, and coke is available as a bed which will get ignited and pass on the heat to melt the liquid metal which is charged, and the liquid metal is tapped from the bottom. It's a very simple operation, and even if the cupola is badly designed, it will also still melt, but only thing is it will consume more of fuel.
The monthly production of about 2,000 to 3,000 tons from these units and the end product, the shaft cutters, did not meet the standards expected by modern consumers and the organized markets. The processes of melting, molding and machining used in these units were obsolete. Of this, the use of single-blast cupolas was seen as a major hurdle that impaired the profitability of these units. In this situation, reaping heavy profits would have always remained a dream for foundry owners.
हमारे यहाँ नई मशीन्स किस तरह से इंट्रोड्यूस हो सकती हैं, कैसे वो वर्क कर सकती हैं, क्या हमारे यहाँ ऐसा कुछ पॉसिबल है? हमें लगता था कि आज तक नहीं, जो सेटअप हमारे पास है वो बेस्ट सेटअप है.
The Foundation for MSME Clusters, FMC, a non-profit organization working for the development of micro, small and medium enterprises, stepped in to counter these challenges. With aid from Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, it began to devise strategies and suitable measures for the sustainable development of Samalkha Foundry Cluster with affordable methods and establishing proper ecosystem through dissemination of knowledge.
Department of Science and Technology, which is a part of the Ministry of Science and Technology, gave us a very challenging proposition to see how innovations can be fostered using cluster development model and approach.
FMC launched a program called Promoting Innovative Clusters, PIC, for intervention and development in the foundry cluster of Samalkha.
This is a cluster which is using coke and has huge potential for saving energy.
FMC's baseline study of 135 foundries in Haryana revealed that the coke consumption in foundries could be reduced from 10 to 35% by simple modification and improvement in the melting practices. An upgradation of single-blast cupola to divided-blast cupola would reduce both the production costs and pollution levels substantially. And the investment of changing the cupola is not very high and can be recovered within 12 to 15 months, depending upon the production capacity of the unit.
Advantage of the double blast cupolas is that you supply air at different levels so that combustion of the coke is more complete than the single blast cupola where the air is supplied only at one level. The published figures indicate that in a single blast cupola, the best combustion which we can get is 70%, whereas in case of double blast cupola, it is as good as 90%, which means we save approximately 20% on the coke.
Divided blast cupolas were available to the foundry sector for 15 years, but only 100 of the 4,950 units all over the country adopted it. There was skepticism in the minds of foundry owners about the functionality, affordability, capacity and willingness of the labor to use this technology.
जब ये काम स्टार्ट किया उस टाइम तो लोग सोचते थे ये सिर्फ टाइम बर्बाद करने के लिए लोग आगे हैं।
शुरू में लगा था कि ये बेवकूफ़ बनाने आए हुए हैं, तो ऐसी दिक्कतें थी हमारे साथ इनकी।
Awareness along with continuous hand-holding support was required to shed the disbelief of the foundry owners and workers. Changing the technology in 1 or 2 units of some selected clusters was not enough. For a holistic and more sustainable development of Samalkha, cluster development approach was the best suited tool to catalyze the process towards sustainability. The cluster development approach entailed establishing a multiplicity of both backward and forward linkages and internal relationships between the stakeholders, the foundry owners, with the technical and financial institutions, machinery suppliers, selling agents in the Samalkha cluster. The whole process was facilitated by the cluster development agent. But the implementation of this strategy was not an easy task. The first and major challenge was to establish trust amongst the foundry owners.
They are probably not even aware that such a kind of technology exists, and therefore it required taking them to certain clusters or other towns where similar kind of units were already functioning and functioning quite well. This actually helped them to understand that there was an option to improve the energy efficiency.
FMC began with a rapid diagnostic study that was shared with its stakeholders. Various workshops and seminars were organized to discuss and disseminate knowledge on issues and solutions under which benefits of divided blast cupolas was picked up as one of the major topics. Visits to benchmark clusters were arranged to create awareness.
फाउंडेशन MSME के साथ हम लोग विजिट किए हैं, अहमदाबाद किए हैं और आपका क्या बोलते हैं इसको राजकोट किए हैं, कोयम्बटूर किए हैं। वो लोग हमसे बहुत आगे हैं इस काम में। जब उनको विजिट किया, उनको देखा तो सोच हमारी नेचुरल बदलने वाली है, आज नहीं तो कल।
Constant intervention finally cracked the shell, and one of the units approached FMC for conversion from single blast cupola to divided blast cupola.
शुरू में थोड़ी झिझक थी, पता नहीं कैसे चलेगा, नहीं चलेगा, नुकसान है नहीं है, लेकिन उन्होंने हमें सपोर्ट किया, कन्विंस कराया, कोशिश की, तो हम तैयार हो गए कि हम अपना कुपोला चेंज करें।
The functioning and results of the newly installed DBC initiated interest in other foundry owners.
पहले सिंगल ब्लास्ट कुपला हमारे लोग चलाते थे, उनमें कोयला बहुत ज़्यादा लगता था और भट्टी का जैसे जो माल निकलता है बाहर वो बहुत टाइम लगाता था, और डबल ब्लास्ट होने से कोयले की कंजम्पशन कम हो गई, क्वालिटी में सुधार हुआ, और जो हमारी भट्टी 5 घंटे लेती थी वो आज 4 घंटे लेती है।
Financial and technical inputs, handhold support, availability of experienced experts was still a challenge. Financial schemes related to foundry units were identified and made available to them. A corpus fund of Rs 8 lakh was created by FMC through local association, and a system was developed which could serve a dual purpose of strengthening the association and the availability of finance to the owners.
The project helped them in preparing a revolving fund with the local industry association so that it could lend out the money to the enterprises for repayment once they realized that this was really useful.
जैसे हमें डबल ब्लास्ट भट्टी की, उन्होंने हमारे को फाइनेंस किया और उन्होंने पैसा वापस किस्तों में लिया।
To ensure the sustainability of the cluster, a strong local governance system was required that could act as a central body to look after issues other than technology. The process of rejuvenating Samalkha Industrial Association was initiated simultaneously, and it was registered subsequently.
हमने सबसे पहले इनके जो एसोसिएशन थी उसका हमने रिन्यूअल कराया, और रिन्यूअल कराने के बाद में परमानेंटली हमने इनका ये ऑफिस पूरा सेटअप किया फाउंडेशन फॉर एमएसएमई क्लस्टर की ओर से। और इस ऑफिस को स्टेबल करने के बाद में हमने इनकी रेगुलरली मीटिंग करना शुरू की। हम मंथ में एक बार इनकी मीटिंग करते हैं, और मीटिंग में जो एजेंडा होता है वो हम पहले फ़िक्स कराते हैं लोगों से बात करके, और लोग अपनी अपनी जो भी परेशानियां होती हैं वो लिखते हैं और एक निश्चित टाइम पे मीटिंग होती है।
अभी तक तो हम लोग एक दूसरे को जानते नहीं थे फैक्ट्री वाले, हम एक दूसरे को कम्पीट करते थे, लेकिन वो लोग आए, हमें अप्रोच किया, इकट्ठा बैठाना उठना, हाउ टू वर्क टुगेदर, ये उन्होंने हमें सिखाया, एक लोगो दिया कि शेयर योर एक्सपीरियंस। अब हम अपने एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करते हैं, एक दूसरे को बताते हैं कि हम कैसे आगे बढ़ सकते हैं।
Meetings with different industry associations, fabricators, visits to technical institutes, testing laboratories to study molding shops and systems were arranged. Young entrepreneurs intending to carry their business forward were educated to understand every technical aspect of the work.
फाउंडेशन ने हमें टेक्निकल हैंड बहुत प्रोवाइड किए, जैसे कुपला के लिए उन्होंने अहमदाबाद से मिस्टर राम मूर्ति जी हैं एक हमारे कंसल्टेंट, हमें पता ही नहीं था कि इस तरह के बंदे भी हैं मार्केट के अंदर।
Samalkha Industrial Association strengthened the linkages between the stakeholders and the technical and training institutes, experts, fabricators that were previously dormant. The foundry owners were also helped with the maintenance of log sheets and records for better organization of their work.
काम करने के तरीके में बहुत चेंजेस आए, जैसे कि पहले लॉग शीट मेंटेन नहीं होती थी, अभी लॉग शीट मेंटेन होती है। सभी पहले हम लोग क्या करते थे कि किसी भी मैन को ये नहीं बताता कि पर्टिकुलर मेरा जॉब क्या है, हम लोगों ने उनको बताया कि भैया आपका काम सिर्फ यही है। पहले हम लोग किसी को कहीं लगा देते थे, किसी को कहीं, तो वो बड़ा अनस्किल्ड सा रहता था। अभी वो सभी के सभी स्किल्ड हो गए और सबको पता है कि सुबह मेरी ड्यूटी ये है, मेरा जॉब ये है, तो डेफिनेटली इसकी वजह से हमारी क्वालिटी भी बहुत अच्छी हो गई है।
Within a year, the results of intervention in Samalkha were remarkable.
At the end of 2009, I think the intervention had been completed in about 16 units, and the savings effected are approximately 44 lakhs, which is a substantial amount. It's approximately 3 lakhs per unit, which is a very large amount for a small scale unit.
Currently, 26 units have been intervened, out of which 10 units have upgraded to DBC, which constitutes 33% of total foundries in Samalkha. The remaining have adopted better cupola operation practices. The success story at Samalkha, however small, has encouraged neighbouring clusters to introduce similar operational methods and technology. If the same is replicated in other 46 foundry clusters in India, with 4,950 grey iron foundries, the potential savings will be around 150,000 tons per annum.
The word is actually spreading around to Faridabad as well as Kathal and some of the nearby towns, who are also requesting the local associations and the Foundation for MSME clusters to replicate this.
As the greenhouse gases are reduced, it is possible to seek carbon credits through CDM, proving to be environmentally beneficial as well.
The amount of coke burnt is becoming less and less. More and more coke is getting fully combusted, which means your pollution levels come down substantially.
The result-oriented cluster development approach used in Samalkha has achieved maximum goals, and FMC suggests to use similar approach in other similar Indian foundry clusters.
What we expect in the coming years is that all enterprises undertake a change, whether in terms of best practices followed or technology changes to be done.
However, a movement like this requires greater participation and contribution by its stakeholders.
What we expect is that all the clusters of foundries will have stronger industry associations, we will have more R&D institutions, Indian Institute of Foundrymen, and many other government agencies which are already propagating the ideas of science and technology across the country, to come forward and collaborate for what are called low cost and jugadu solutions, in order to ensure that we have both efficiency as well as effectiveness of our products and systems across the entire country.
The cluster development approach in Samalkha facilitated not only the process of technical upgradation to DBCs, but also initiated improvements and innovations in work practices. This has led to the reduction in the cost of production and subsequent higher cumulative savings. the development of a sense of cooperation and oneness among foundry owners of Samalkha has proved to be the final nail in the holistic growth of the cluster. To a country where micro, small and medium enterprises are the dynamic engines of industrial growth, such an intervention can trigger off a chain reaction, leading to national development, including both human and non-human resources and environmental preservation.